Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. It seems like everywhere you turn these days, someone's talking about AI, but today we're going to be diving into a really specific application: AI powered cancer vaccines.
It really is amazing what AI is doing for medicine.
We've got some really interesting research to unpack today from frontiers in immunology, and we'll also be looking at a real world example, an AI platform called Pioneer.
Sounds great.
Okay, let's start with the basics. So, what are therapeutic cancer vaccines? How do they work?
Therapeutic cancer vaccines, or TCVs, are designed to, essentially train your immune system to recognize and target those cancer cells.
So basically, it's like giving your body's own defenses a boost.
Right, kind of like a personalized weapon against the cancer.
That's fascinating. I mean, how does our immune system even know what to target with these vaccines?
Well, that's where those dendritic cells come in. They're kind of like the intelligence officers of the immune system. Think of them like scouts, gathering information about threats.
Ah, so they're the ones that identify the cancer cells.
Yeah, and then they present that information to the T cells, which are like the special forces.
Yep.
They're the ones that actually go in and destroy the cancer cells.
Okay, so the dendritic cells are the intel and the T cells are the muscle.
That's a great way to put it.
All right, so how do these vaccines fit into all of that?
Well, the vaccine basically gives those dendritic cells the information they need to identify and target the cancer cells.
So it's like giving them a wanted poster for the cancer, right?
Precisely.
Fascinating.
And traditionally, scientists would inject weakened or inactive cancer cells directly into the body, or even just specific antigens.
Antigens, those are like the flags on the cancer cells that the immune system can recognize, right?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, so that makes sense. They're basically showing the immune system what to look for.
Right.
But I know we're going to get into the AI stuff in a minute, but I'm kind of curious about these adjuvants. I know they're often included in vaccines. What exactly do they do?
Yeah, adjuvants are like little helpers. They basically boost the immune response to the vaccine. Think
Yes.
of them as like amplifying the signal.
Right. So they make the immune system pay more attention to the vaccine.
Exactly. And that can help make the vaccine more effective.
Interesting. So where does AI fit into all of this? It feels like AI is kind of taking over everything these days.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
AI is being used in all sorts of incredible ways in medicine, and cancer vaccines are no exception. It's being used at every stage of the process, from identifying those target antigens to predicting how well a vaccine will work.
So AI is kind of like the mastermind behind the whole operation.
In a way, yes.
Hmm.
It's helping us to understand those cancer cells at a deeper level, to find their weaknesses, and to design more effective vaccines to exploit those weaknesses.
That's incredible. So are we talking cures here?
Well, it's still early days, and we have to be cautious about making any grand pronouncements.
I understand.
But the potential is definitely there, and AI is playing a huge role in moving this field forward.
So AI isn't just hype, it's really making a difference.
It really is.
Yeah.
AI algorithms are like, imagine master detectives sifting through mountains of data, looking for clues. Some of these algorithms, like convolutional neural networks, are incredibly good at spotting patterns.
Right. I've heard about those.
Yeah, they're perfect for finding those hidden cancer fingerprints.
Cancer fingerprints.
I mean, neoantigens. These are unique markers on cancer cells. Like, each tumor has its own set of them.
Ah, okay.
AI can analyze a patient's tumor and predict which neoantigens will trigger the strongest immune response.
So it's like a personalized cancer fighting strategy.
Exactly.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And it doesn't stop there, right? AI can also help with predicting epitopes, those, what were those again? The best parts of the antigens to include in the vaccine, right?
Yeah, you got it. Epitopes are basically the bits of the antigens that the immune system actually latches onto. And AI can help us figure out which ones are most likely to trigger a strong response. It's like, think of a sniper aiming for the most vulnerable point on a target. That's what AI is helping us to do.
That's a great analogy. So we're moving from this kind of one-size-fits-all approach to a more personalized, targeted strategy. It's pretty remarkable, but this isn't just theoretical, right? I mean, are there actual tools being used right now that are powered by AI?
There absolutely are. And there are a ton of them being developed all the time. One example is Discotope 3.0. It's great at predicting B-cell epitopes, which are the parts of the antigens that trigger a specific type of immune response.
Oh, cool.
And then there's Transmut. It's used to predict how well peptides, which are small protein fragments, will bind to MHC molecules.
Yeah.
That's really important for activating those T cells.
Wow, it's like AI is giving scientists this whole new toolkit for designing these vaccines.
It really is. And it's not just about designing the vaccines themselves. AI is also being used to screen and identify new potential targets for vaccines.
Like new cancer antigens.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. And is AI being used to create these different kinds of vaccines? Like, are there AI-powered DNA vaccines, RNA vaccines, that sort of thing?
Yes, there are. And each type of vaccine comes with its own set of challenges and opportunities, which of course AI can help us address.
Okay, so let's dive into some of these different types. Let's start with DNA vaccines. What exactly are they, and how is AI changing the game?
Well, DNA vaccines use plasmids, which are small circular pieces of DNA that contain the genetic code for, in this case, cancer antigens.
So it's like injecting a tiny blueprint into the body?
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
And those plasmids basically instruct the body's cells to produce those cancer antigens. And that, in turn, triggers the immune system to recognize and attack the cancer cells.
So the body's basically making its own enemy to train the immune system to fight.
That's the idea.
It's kind of like a Trojan horse for cancer.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, from a manufacturing perspective, I imagine these DNA vaccines must be a lot easier to produce than other types, right?
Yeah, that's one of the big advantages. DNA is a pretty stable molecule, making production and storage much easier.
That makes sense. But I'm guessing there must be some challenges too, right? Nothing in biology is ever that simple.
You're absolutely right. One concern is the potential for the DNA to integrate itself into the host's genome.
Wait, so the DNA from the vaccine could become part of our own DNA?
It's a rare possibility, but it's something that scientists are studying very carefully.
Right, because messing with our DNA could have unpredictable consequences.
Yeah, we want to make sure these vaccines are both effective and safe.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about the immune system? Could it react negatively to the DNA itself instead of just the cancer antigens?
That's another challenge. It's like the body sometimes gets distracted by the delivery truck and doesn't focus on the package it's carrying.
Okay, I get it. So it's about striking that balance. Are there any companies out there making headway with these DNA vaccines?
Absolutely. Evaxion Biotech is one company that's doing some really interesting work in this area. They've developed a DNA vaccine called EVX-01 that's designed for patients with metastatic melanoma.
I think I read about that one. Is that the one that uses their AI platform, Pioneer?
Yes, that's the one. Pioneer helps identify those neoantigens, those unique fingerprints we talked about, for each patient's tumor.
So it's like they're creating a customized weapon for each patient.
That's the goal, to personalize the vaccine to make it as effective as possible.
That's incredible. Okay, let's move on to another type of vaccine. RNA vaccines. I know everyone thinks RNA vaccines are just for viruses, like the COVID-19 vaccines.
Yeah, they definitely made a big splash with the pandemic.
But it turns out they might be game changers for cancer too, right?
You got it.
Hmm.
And they work in a similar way to DNA vaccines, providing those instructions for building antigens, except they use messenger RNA, or mRNA, instead of DNA.
So it's like delivering a more targeted message.
Exactly. And since mRNA doesn't need to get into the cell's nucleus to work, it can actually start producing those cancer antigens much faster.
Oh, wow. So it's like skipping a step.
Kind of, yeah. And that faster production could lead to a faster immune response.
Fascinating. And I'm assuming AI plays a role in optimizing those mRNA sequences, just like it does with the DNA and DNA vaccines.
Absolutely. AI can analyze mountains of data to predict which RNA sequences will be most stable, translate most efficiently, and ultimately trigger the most effective immune response. It's like refining those instructions, making sure the body's building the right weapons and deploying them effectively.
It's amazing how AI is being used in all these different ways.
It is, and it's really only the beginning.
So we've talked about DNA vaccines and RNA vaccines. Are there any other types out there using AI to fight cancer?
There are, yeah. Let's talk about peptide vaccines next. These use short fragments of protein called peptides to train the immune system.
So instead of giving the whole blueprint, they're giving the immune system pre-made pieces of the target.
Exactly.
I wonder, what are some of the pros and cons of that approach?
Well, one challenge is that tumors are, well, they can be incredibly diverse with different cell types and mutations.
Right, that tumor heterogeneity thing.
Yeah, exactly. And designing a peptide vaccine that can effectively target all those variations can be, well, it can be tricky.
So how do they even begin to overcome that challenge?
That's where AI comes in again.
Yeah.
AI algorithms can analyze a patient's tumor and try to predict which peptides are most likely to trigger a strong immune response.
So AI is helping to design these personalized peptide vaccines.
Yeah. It's like AI is playing matchmaker finding the perfect peptides to activate those T cells.
That's so cool. I love these analogies. Are there companies out there working on this type of vaccine too?
There are, yeah. Artigen is one that comes to mind. They have a platform called AR Design that uses AI to identify targets for peptide vaccines.
I see. And how does that work?
It basically analyzes a patient's tumor and then predicts which peptides are most likely to bind to their specific MHC molecules.
MHC molecules, remind me, what are those again?
They're kind of like the gatekeepers on the surface of cells. They help the immune system recognize which cells are healthy and which ones are infected or cancerous.
Right. I remember now.
So yeah, AR design is all about finding the right peptide key to fit that MHC lock.
Okay, so we've got DNA vaccines, RNA vaccines, peptide vaccines. It's amazing how AI is playing a role in all of these different approaches. Are there any other types of cancer vaccines that we haven't talked about yet?
Yes, there's one more that's particularly interesting, dendritic cell vaccines.
Ah, right. Dendritic cells. They're the intel officers of the immune system, right?
Exactly. They capture those antigens and present them to the T cells.
So how do they use dendritic cells in a vaccine?
Well, with dendritic cell vaccines, they actually train dendritic cells outside the body to recognize specific cancer antigens.
Wait, so they train them in a lab?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? They take dendritic cells from the patient's own body and expose them to cancer antigens in a very controlled environment. And once these cells are trained, they inject them back into the patient.
So they're like supercharged dendritic cells that know exactly what to look for.
Exactly. And because they're the patient's own cells, there's less of a chance of rejection by the immune system.
That's pretty clever. And I'm guessing AI can help improve these dendritic cell vaccines too.
You bet. AI algorithms can help optimize their delivery and effectiveness. For instance, they can help design nanoparticles that deliver those trained dendritic cells directly to the tumor.
So it's like a guided missile system for those dendritic cells.
Exactly. AI is really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with these vaccines.
It's incredible. And I remember you mentioned adjuvants earlier. Are those being used with these dendritic cell vaccines as well?
They can be, yes. And actually, AI is being used to discover new and better adjuvants all the time.
So AI is involved in pretty much every aspect of these vaccines, from identifying targets to designing the vaccines to optimizing their delivery to boosting the immune response. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. AI is revolutionizing this entire field, and it's all happening at an incredible pace.
It's fantastic, but I think it's also important to remember that there are still some challenges ahead, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
One of the biggest hurdles is data. We need tons of data to train these AI models effectively, and it needs to be high-quality data.
Data is always a challenge, isn't it?
It often is. And then there's the complexity of the human body. Modeling all of those intricate interactions within the immune system and the tumor microenvironment, it's a huge challenge.
Right. Even with all this amazing AI, we're still trying to figure out the fundamentals of biology.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then you have to factor in that tumor heterogeneity we've been talking about. Designing a vaccine that can effectively target all the different cell types within a tumor, it's like, well, it's incredibly difficult.
It's like trying to hit a moving target, and the target is changing shape and direction constantly.
Exactly. And we can't forget about clinical translation. Moving from promising research in the lab to actually using these treatments in patients is a long and complicated process.
Right. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we make sure all this research actually benefits patients?
It takes collaboration. Researchers, clinicians, regulatory agencies, funding. It's a whole ecosystem that needs to work together.
It's a complex puzzle, but the potential rewards are enormous.
I agree. The future of personalized cancer vaccines is incredibly bright, but it's going to take time, resources, and a lot of brilliant people working together to make it happen.
Well, it's amazing to think that we might be able to create personalized treatments for every cancer patient to maximize effectiveness and minimize side effects.
That's the dream. And we're getting closer every day. We've really only just scratched the surface of this field. There's so much more to explore.
I can't wait to dive in. Next up, we'll be exploring even more about the world of personalized cancer vaccines.
Stay tuned. All right, so we've been talking about these AI-powered cancer vaccines.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff.
It is.
But what makes these personalized vaccines so different from the traditional approaches?
Well, we have to remember that cancer is not just one disease.
Right.
It's a whole bunch of incredibly complex and diverse diseases.
Yeah. And each person's cancer is unique.
Exactly.
With its own set of genetic quirks and vulnerabilities and all of that.
That's right. So a one-size-fits-all approach, well, it just doesn't work.
Makes sense.
Personalized cancer vaccines, they really take into account those individual differences,
Right.
targeting those specific mutations and characteristics of each patient's tumor.
Okay, so I see how AI comes into all of this.
Yeah.
It's like a custom designed weapon
Yes,
to fight each person's unique enemy.
precisely. AI is really crucial for making this a reality. Remember those neoantigens we were talking about earlier?
Yes. The unique fingerprints on cancer cells.
Exactly. AI algorithms, they can analyze a patient's tumor and predict which neoantigens are most likely to trigger a strong immune response.
So is this what allows scientists to design vaccines that are tailored to each patient's specific tumor?
Yes. It's all about finding those weak spots,
Right.
those vulnerabilities in the tumor.
That's incredible.
It is.
That we can actually target those specific markers now.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any limitations?
There are. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is just the sheer complexity of tumors.
Right.
Remember, each tumor is like a diverse ecosystem of cells.
Right, and they're constantly evolving and changing.
Yeah, the tumor heterogeneity we were talking about.
Right, it's like hitting a moving target, but the target's constantly changing shape and direction.
Exactly. So even a personalized vaccine might not be able to get every single cancer cell.
I see.
And that's why researchers are looking at different ways to combine different approaches, like maybe using a personalized vaccine alongside some other therapies.
I see. So like chemo or immunotherapy.
Right, exactly.
So it's like a multi-pronged attack.
Yes, hitting the cancer from all different angles.
Okay.
And AI can play a big role in designing those combination therapies too,
Right.
figuring out the optimal mix of treatments for each patient.
So it sounds like even though a personalized cancer vaccine might not be a guaranteed cure,
Right.
it is a powerful new weapon,
It is.
and it's likely to become even more effective as research continues.
Absolutely. And there have already been some really promising clinical trials using personalized cancer vaccines.
Oh, wow.
There was one study that combined a personalized neoantigen vaccine with a checkpoint inhibitor.
With a checkpoint inhibitor,
Right.
which is a type of immunotherapy, right?
Right, exactly.
The checkpoint inhibitors, they help to unleash the immune system's full potential.
That's a good way to put it. They take the brakes off the immune system, so to speak,
Right.
allowing it to attack those cancer cells more aggressively.
Okay.
And in that study, the combination of that personalized vaccine and the checkpoint inhibitor showed some really impressive results. Yeah, in patients with advanced tumors.
So it's not just about developing better vaccines,
Right.
it's about finding better ways to use them.
Exactly. And AI can help with both.
Right.
Designing more effective vaccines
Okay.
and figuring out how to use them strategically.
That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
It sounds like personalized cancer vaccines are really moving from like the realm of science fiction into the realm of reality.
They are.
And AI is the driving force behind that revolution.
It is.
It's exciting to think about the potential these vaccines hold, but, with such a powerful technology, we have to use it ethically, right?
Oh,
We
absolutely.
need to make sure everyone benefits,
Yes.
not just select few.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest concerns, equitable access.
All right,
Personalized therapies are likely to be very expensive.
at least initially.
Yeah, at least at first, yeah.
So how do we make sure that cost doesn't prevent people from getting these treatments, especially when there are already, so many disparities in healthcare access?
Yeah, that's a really important point. And it's a complex issue.
Uh-huh.
It's going to take a lot of collaboration between governments, healthcare providers, and pharmaceutical companies.
Right.
We need innovative pricing models and, new ways to fund these treatments.
Right, so everyone who needs them can get them.
Yes, exactly.
It's like a social justice issue as much as a scientific one.
I completely agree. It's so important to have these conversations about access and affordability alongside the scientific advancements.
Right, otherwise we just end up making existing health disparities worse.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got access, we've got affordability.
Mm.
What other ethical considerations are there?
Well, there's also the issue of data privacy and security.
Right.
Personalized medicine relies, say, heavily on collecting all this personal health data.
Yeah, it's a ton of data.
It is. And we need to protect that information,
Uh-huh.
make sure it's not misused.
Right.
So we need strong data governance frameworks
Yeah.
and really clear guidelines for how that data is collected and used.
And patients should be able to control their own information.
Yes, absolutely. Transparency and patient autonomy are essential.
It sounds like there's a lot to think about,
There is.
beyond just the science.
Yeah, the ethical and societal implications are just as important.
Right. We need to be having these conversations now.
Yes, exactly. As these technologies are being developed
Right.
and refined. Yeah.
Okay, so we need to anticipate the challenges
Yeah.
and address them before they become problems.
Right.
It's not just about creating new treatments, it's about creating them responsibly
I agree.
and making sure they benefit everyone.
Well said.
AI is clearly playing this huge role
It is.
in developing these cancer vaccines. It's giving us all this hope
It is.
for a future where cancer isn't such a scary thing.
I agree. It's an exciting time to be working in this field.
But we also have to remember that AI is a tool.
It is, yeah.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
That's right.
It's up to us to make sure it's used wisely
Yes,
and ethically.
I agree.
So we need to guide these advancements to benefit all of humanity.
That's right.
This has been a really enlightening discussion.
It is.
I've learned so much about AI and cancer vaccines,
You too.
and I'm sure our listeners have too. But before we wrap up this part, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, I think it's important to remember that while AI is incredibly powerful, it's not magic.
Right?
It's not going to solve all our problems overnight.
I understand.
But it is a tool that can help us make significant progress
Mm-hmm.
in fighting cancer.
Okay.
And we need to use it wisely and responsibly.
Well said. It's not a cure-all,
Right.
but it's a powerful new weapon in our arsenal.
It is.
And it has the potential to change the way we think about cancer treatment.
I think we're on the cusp of a new era in cancer treatment.
Wow.
An era where personalized AI-powered therapies
Mm-hmm.
are going to be central in helping us conquer this disease.
I'm excited to see what the future holds. Thanks for joining us.
It's been my pleasure.
We'll be back soon to explore even more.
Yes, stay tuned.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into AI-powered cancer vaccines.
We have. It's been quite the journey.
From the different types of vaccines
Yeah.
to the incredible ways AI is being used
Yeah.
to personalize these treatments.
It really is mind-blowing to see how technology is revolutionizing this whole field.
It really is. It's exciting to think about what the future holds.
Oh, absolutely.
But as we've been talking about, there's a lot more to think about than just the science.
Right. Definitely. We can't ignore those ethical and societal implications.
Right. We need to make sure that these tools are used responsibly
Yes.
and that everyone benefits.
Right. Not just a select few.
Exactly. We talked about equitable access
Uh-huh.
and data privacy,
Yes,
but I feel like there's even more to consider.
there is.
What else should we be thinking about?
Well, I think one thing to consider is the potential impact on healthcare systems.
Okay.
If personalized cancer vaccines become widely available,
Right.
it's going to fundamentally change how we approach
Yeah.
cancer treatment and prevention.
That makes sense. I mean, we're not just talking about developing new therapies.
What?
We're talking about integrating them into existing systems.
Exactly. We might need to rethink how we allocate resources,
Yeah.
how we train healthcare professionals,
Uh-huh.
even how we structure insurance plans.
Wow. So it's not just about the science, it's about the infrastructure.
It is. It's a massive undertaking.
It is.
It's going to require collaboration across multiple sectors.
That's a huge challenge, but it's also an amazing opportunity
It is.
to create a more effective
Yes.
and equitable healthcare system.
I agree. And this is where public engagement is really important.
Okay.
We need to have these open and honest conversations
Uh-huh.
about the potential benefits
Okay.
and the challenges.
Right. It's not just up to the scientists and the
Yes.
policymakers to figure this out.
It's a conversation we all need to be having.
Right. Because we're shaping the future of healthcare.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure these advancements align with our values
Yes.
and that they benefit society as a whole.
This deep dive has been quite a journey.
It has.
We explored the potential of AI-powered cancer vaccines,
Yeah.
but we also talked about the complex ethical and societal issues.
We did. I think it really highlights the importance of looking at these things from all angles.
Absolutely. We can't just focus on the science.
Right.
We need to consider the broader context
Yes.
and make sure these technologies are being used ethically.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed it.
We hope it's given you a lot to think about
We encourage you to keep learning
Yes.
about this incredible field
and to get involved.
because the future of healthcare is being shaped right now.
It is.
And we all have a role to play in making sure it's
Yeah.
a future that benefits everyone.
Well said.
And with that, we'll leave you to ponder the possibilities
Yeah.
and the challenges ahead.
Until next time, keep diving deep.